society where the people fear the government when the government should fear its people.
People might not say, I'm mad and gerrymandering is the reason, or I'm mad we need redistricting reform, but the things they tend to be mad at are things that gerrymandering produces.
Build the Workers' Party!
I think it's done more damage to democracy in our country than anything else. Not even a close call.
United we fight! Divided we fall! United we fight! United we fight!
The government is there to represent the people, not the representatives picking the people that they want to vote for. We don't want a rigged system. This is America. And more importantly, it's Virginia.
The federal court has recently struck down 11 Virginia House districts as unconstitutional. The districts were found guilty of racial gerrymandering. I wanted to know more about the federal court's decision. I traveled to Richmond to One Virginia 2021 office on Clay Street. That's where I met Brian Cannon, the executive director of One Virginia 2021.
We just had a court case come down a couple of weeks ago from a 3-judge federal court saying that Virginia has to redraw 11 House of Delegates districts. Because it's 11 districts, but if you look at all the districts that those 11 touch, they go from Richmond down to the peninsula and into Norfolk. If you look at all those districts they touch, that's like 33 districts in total. So it's a lot. It's a third of the Virginia House of Delegates that could be redrawn per court order.
Ernie Gates is a foundation board member who was meeting with Cannon at the time of my visit. The gerrymandering win stems from the Bethune-Hill case. Bethune-Hill is an African-American woman who was among the plaintiffs who sued the Virginia Board of Elections and won.
Bethune-Hill is actually a wonderful woman. I've actually met her once. Her first name is Golden. She's a very wonderful person. She's active in Democratic Party politics, and she was one of the plaintiffs, one of the, I think they probably had a dozen or maybe 14 plaintiffs in this case.
Cannon gave me background information on the case.
The United States Supreme Court had ordered these 11 to be looked at again for the second time in March of 2017. There were originally 12 districts in the suit, and the Supreme Court upheld one of those districts. So the other 11 are all kind of similarly situated regarding majority-minority districts that had been forced to have a 55% black voting age population cohort in them, which is a pretty sizable number, and the court struck that down as racial gerrymandering.
I wanted to know more about racial gerrymandering.
In the broad picture of this, we have 20% of our state is African American, yet only 13.5% of our legislature is African American. That's a pretty big delta between the number of black people we have in our state and the number we have actually representing those voices in the legislature.
Let me tell you what was so illegal about that. It prevented African Americans from having any influence.
That is a direct example of how packed these minorities have been into these kind of oddly shaped districts that carve up neighborhoods and communities. We saw the voter confusion in both Newport News and in Fredericksburg, the misassigned voters and everything like that. We've seen that this play out as it fractures communities and confuses voters and confuses registrars. But for us, for the communities advocating for fair districts, this is a chance to do it better. Right? It's clear that the current process where politicians get to draw their own districts, get to pick their voters and carve it up for their own crass political gain, it's clear that system hasn't worked. It doesn't represent Virginians. It doesn't represent anybody but the current incumbents. And it's been a bipartisan problem, and we're glad to be part of a nonpartisan solution.
He weighed in on the Bethune-Hill case victory. I
think the court got it right. And then my second thought is that politically, this puts the House of Delegates in play in 2019. We're a nonpartisan organization just hoping to get fair maps, but the uncertainty behind who's going to be in charge in 2021 when Virginia redistricts the next time, the uncertainty behind that should make both parties more willing to come to the table and make a fair deal. And I think this court case helps that.
Cannon explained his passion for his work with One Virginia 2021. The organization has been around for more than 4 years. Cannon has worked with the group for 3 of those years.
My first love in politics was actually campaign finance reform. It was John McCain in 1999. I was a senior in high school, and he was talking about the kind of corruption and the money flowing in politics and how, we don't have to agree on everything in politics, but we should agree that we want the process to be fair. I go to law school almost a decade later and find out that it's really hard to fix campaign finance reform. Every time people have tried, there's a First Amendment haircut, the thing gets by the courts. But what you look at when you start looking at reforms our country should be making, it doesn't take you very long to get to redistricting reform. It doesn't take you very long to get to how gerrymandering is fracturing our communities. And so I've been an advocate for this for well over a decade, and now it's a real opportunity to have a chance to work on this full time.
He explained how the U.S. government has gotten out of hand.
I think there's a lot of big questions our government needs to answer, right? We've got transportation problems, we've got healthcare problems, we've got education problems. Our country needs to solve these problems, but we're gridlocked and pulled apart artificially by gerrymandering. If we fix this, this isn't going to solve all of our problems, but it should empower us to have an honest discussion about the things that we should be addressing.
According to Cannon, there is more work to be done.
We're working on getting communities and our local volunteer leaders that we have all over the state. We're working on getting them prepared to understand what happened in the Bethune-Hill case, to understand the policy implications that are bubbling up right now.
In Richmond, Elaine Rackley for Breaking Through News.